Hi, and welcome back. Today I'm chatting to Andreas Mitchley, who's a little bit like me. He's standing as an independent mayoral candidate in our great city, our capital city of London. I'm just standing in our second city, so he's one step higher than me as a candidate for standing in the capital. So we're going to have a chat today about similarities between ourselves. What are the issues in London? I would imagine exactly the same in Manchester. He's got a harder fight than me because his mayor actually is mental. My mayor in Greater Manchester is just incompetent, so I've got a slightly easier fight there. Let's get straight to it. So welcome, Andreas, to the show.
Thank you, Nick, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, great. When our mutual friends contacted me saying he's working with you on your campaign in London, it was like, oh, great, another independent. He's putting his head above the parapet to make a difference. And do you know what? It doesn't matter if we win or if we lose. It's about making sure there's different voices in the arena, and we need to hold politicians to account. I mean, that's the main reason why I'm standing. But before we get into that, who are you? And why are you, well, forget why you're standing, we'll get into that, but who are you as a man?
Well, firstly and foremostly, I'm a father. I've got two children, a third one on the way. That's my main priority in life. You know, family values, they mean everything to me. I'm an independent candidate for Mayor of London. I'm a businessman, campaigner. I was born and bred right here in London, grew up here, started my businesses here. And I'm raising my family here. And this is where I've decided to settle my roots.
Was there one thing that happened or one thing that you heard about that made you go, I'm sick of this, I need to stand?
Yeah, it's a bit of a story how we got there. We can just crack right into it if you want. Yeah, I guess it started probably I'd say about 14 years ago, something like that. When I was back in university, I was asked to write a paper. I was studying finance and accounting, and I was asked to write a paper on the credit crunch at the time. It was in 2008. Long story short, the more I started reading into things, it just, questions kept popping up into my head about the way finances are run in this country, the way, just basic questions, like what is money and how does money come into circulation? I really went down a sort of rabbit hole, and before you knew it, I was just, everything sort of didn't make sense to me. Something would pop up in the news, and I'd be asking, why is that happening? What's the real reason that's sort of happening? But fast forward, I'd say another few years. I started my businesses. I've got a very well-known bodybuilding gym here in London, and it just became a sort of like service to my community. It's more like a sort of family business where we all sort of like we all. I wouldn't even call it a business. It's like a community, and yeah. So that community's been running for the best part of 10 years. Then COVID hit, and we were told we needed to close. By then, I'd already been very suspicious about what had happened, what was going on. I was always asking questions, from 10 years ago when I'd sort of opened my eyes to the world a little bit more. And as soon as lockdown number one hit, I decided, this something's not right here. And, this is a sort of attack on our community at the least. And I decided not to close my gym. But at the time, there wasn't many people that sort of saw things the same way I did. And, I think it was only about 2 or 3 days into the first lockdown. And then, by then, no, not many people had been coming. I think there was only about 10 people sort of coming to the gym. Most people sort of believed what they were hearing in the news and in the media. And then about a day later after that, I had the circuit board in my gym just basically blew. So I think it couldn't have happened at a more perfect time. But then I had to basically close the gym. Fast forward into lockdown, the end of lockdown number one. By then I think a lot of people have sort of started to wake up to things. They'd started to understand, see things more for what it was, and realize, it wasn't exactly what the media and the government were sort of portraying to us. By then I'd sort of started attending a lot of protests in London. I think the very first one I went to was in May 2020. Again, there wasn't very many people at the protest at that time. You know, there might have been about 100 or so people at the protests, and I think there was a lot of like sort of hippies sitting around in circles. It was more of a it was a bit of a funny sort of time. Yeah, so fast forward to sort of July 2020, then Boris Johnson announced that gyms are allowed to reopen. So everyone sort of came piling in through the doors again. We, you know, got on with things, but something told me at the time, you know, this isn't going to be the end of it. We're gonna get another lockdown. We're gonna get more problems from the government. So I started releasing a lot of videos on social media, you know, saying, you know, if we do get another lockdown, I'm definitely not going to close again, because I'd done that in the first lockdown, but it didn't really get a lot of traction and people didn't really sort of support what I was doing at the time. By the second lockdown, it did come, and by the second lockdown, the sort of videos I've been putting out in social media, they started going viral. And people by, I think, the second lockdown really supported what I was doing. And yeah, so I think it was the 5th of November. That was when Boris Johnson, it was a really weird lockdown actually, because he actually pre-planned the lockdown. He said, we are going to lock down on the 5th of November. So it was like even more questions were raising in my head, I guess, in everyone's heads. So yeah, the 5th of November came, we didn't close, and we just literally had people coming from all over the country, literally like Scotland, Cornwall, people were coming from all over the country to sort of support what we were doing, and train, of course. We had a lot of grief from the police and the council, Haringey Council, central government. I think we was getting about 2 to 3 visits a day from the police, probably similar amount from the council. In all fairness, the police I'd say they were almost supportive of what I was doing. They were there, you know, doing what they had to do. You know, they're bound to sort of enforce the legislation, but at the same time, you know, as people, they were sort of supporting what I was doing, it meant quite a lot to me, because it was almost like, you know, that everyone believed in what I was doing. Yeah, so we started getting the fines started coming in. I think it got to about day 4, and then it started with like a £1,000 fine, then a £2,000 fine the day after, and then it went up to something like 10,000, and then every day we was just getting £10,000 fines. I think like twice a day at one point. Then we had a lot of sort of media started getting involved. I think the ITV News reported it on the national headlines. It started hitting like the worldwide headlines. And then central government, Scotland Yard, police, council, they all sort of ran a task force, and basically they had police from every different borough of London standing outside the gym, preventing people from coming in. It was circulating. You know, at any one point, we'd have anywhere between sort of 10 officers to 40 officers lined up outside the gym in the car park, preventing people from coming in. And this is what at the time, yeah, it was Sadiq Khan who was Mayor of London. This is what Little Man Khan's Metropolitan Police were doing. You know, I had a conversation one time with he was like a superintendent, I think, or a sergeant, and he said there's a robbery happening right now 2 roads away from around the corner, and I'm not allowed to go and attend it. I have to stay right here. So yeah, this is what Little Man Khan's Metropolitan Police was doing at the time. It became a bit of almost like a sort of mini revolution was happening at the time. Yeah, so but in all fairness to the police and you know the police, they weren't aggressive to any of the members or anything. I don't think they even issued any fines to anyone, the police themselves. They, I think so they later cautioned me and reported me for prosecution, which they had to do anyway. They was very polite about it at the time, and it was a pretty easy process or something. Yeah, so fast forward to the court cases eventually came around. I didn't get prosecuted for lockdown number 1. I got prosecuted for lockdown number 2 and lockdown number 3. And I won both those court cases in court. And I think I was the very first business in the UK to actually successfully win a convict prosecution. So yeah, it was a bit of a massive thing at the time. It got a lot of traction in the media, got a lot of, it was getting shared around a lot on social media. And for me personally, I was just very happy I could support my members, local community, and even people from literally all corners of the United Kingdom were coming down. I was just very happy I could sort of support people in a difficult time, because it was a difficult time. People were just being told to stay at home for pretty much no reason at all.
So how did all that lead to you standing for mayor?
Yeah, so after the sort of gym stand I made, I decided to sort of move back to the protesting, which I'd originally done in lockdown number one. And I started carried on going to them. By then, now I was absolutely, amazed and almost shocked. But the protests they weren't any. It wasn't sort of like 100 people coming and a few hippies sitting in the High Park holding hands. We were talking like in the millions now. The whole of London was just completely. Every corner was just locked down with people just standing in the roads. Just fighting for freedom, fighting against authoritarian measures, fighting against oppression, fighting against the bullshit, really. And yeah, I was amazed by that. So yeah, I got back into the sort of protest scene, and eventually sort of realized shortly after that that the protests we were doing weren't really having much of an effect. The government were just basically laughing at us, I think, and the media weren't even reporting it. I think one time we had one of the biggest protests. We had I think it was well over 1 million people, and BBC reported a couple of hundred anti-vaxxers causing trouble in central London. It was ridiculous. So yeah, I decided, the protests weren't really having much of an effect at the time. So there was I made a lot of friends at the time who had very similar beliefs to me, and we all sort of formed a group and we started organising our own protests where we were targeting specific sort of media buildings, government agencies, the ones that we felt were responsible for the trouble that they were causing at the time. And that started to really have I think we were definitely pressing buttons, poking the right people. It was definitely upsetting the government at the time. I think I'd say one of the most successful protests we organised. One time it was at the MHRA head office in Canary Wharf. And for anyone that doesn't know, it's the Medical Health Regulatory Authority or something. I think I've said that right. But they're the ones responsible for basically regulating the COVID vaccine. And at the time, they'd authorized the use of the COVID vaccine for 5 to 12-year-olds. And we basically went to their head office, locked down the whole of Canary Wharf. I think we had a few thousand people there. So Canary Wharf it's almost like an island in the middle of sort of central East London, but we managed to lock it down. And we really upset them that day, because I think it was about an hour after we left, the JCVI and the MHRA went on Sky News and said, we've changed our mind. We're not authorising the use of the vaccine for 5 to 12-year-olds. Boris Johnson got really upset about that day. So yeah, I'd say that was like a real sort of successful moment for me in the protesting, because we went there to protest. Our voices got heard, and it made an actual difference. It was only for about a week, because they backtracked and changed their minds about a week later. But yeah, so it just got to the point where it was just like I'd realised I'm constantly on the defensive. I've from the beginning of 2020 up until I think at this point we was into sort of late 2021. I'm just constantly sort of defending. Everything's a jab from the government, central government, local authorities, metropolitan police. They're taking jabs at me, and I'm just putting my hands up, defending. They're prosecuting me. I'm defending in court. Everything's a defense, and I'd realised at some point, I can't sit here just with my hands up defending all the time. I need to sort of take a jab back now. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. It's time to get on the offense. It's time to start doing something that will actually make a real difference. If I would, I don't even need to say, if I was to be elected mayor of London, it'd just be monumental, historical.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say you're standing for mayor because you feel your government, your mayor and the government he runs is constantly attacking you, your rights and your freedom?
I'd say that is almost a perfect description. Yeah, we're just under constant oppression. We're under constant authoritarian policies being imposed on us. You know, a lot of people, you know, there are people out there that agree with it, but whatever the reason is for those policies, the beginning and end of it is you can't impose policies on people. There has to be consultation. There has to be democracy. You know, that sort of fundamental ethos of our country has almost been lost over the last 3-4 years. I mean, it's been going downhill for many years, but it's just, it was like since 2020, all of a sudden, they're allowed to just do what they want. It's just like, no, that's not what government's there for. That's not what the councils are there for. Even the word they describe the councils now as, they call them the local authority. They're not an authority. They're public servants that are supposed to be serving us. It's like, where did that name even come from? The police themselves, you know, they're supposed to be serving us. And all of a sudden, it seems like we're all sort of defending from these government agencies, the police, the councils. It's not meant to be like that. It's not meant to be like that.
No, I completely agree. Something changed. I'm not sure when it changed, but politicians seem to have forgotten that they're public servants. They're not our masters or overlords. They're our servants. And if you're going to introduce new legislation, new rules, new way of living in the UK, you need the consent of the public. And you get the consent of the public by manifestos, by saying, vote for me and I will implement these things, not by getting into power, then doing whatever you want to do once you're in power.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is literally the exact reason why I'm standing. It is, you know, we could talk about all the policies all day long, but the beginning and end of it is the ethos of our country has always been, we, the sovereign people, hold the power, not the politicians. It's just sort of like a switch has happened at some point, and I can't see it holding up, honestly.
No, things are definitely changing. Things are changing. I'm standing for a slightly different reason. I was watching TV a couple of years ago, and the press, BBC, ITV, whatever I was watching at the time, announced Greater Manchester Police have gone into special measures. The second force ever in the country to go into special measures. And I'm sat on my settee going, our police are failing. And if we lose a decent police force, that means society will collapse. Because how do you walk down the street? How do you leave your house if you think you're going to get robbed or your house is going to be burgled? How do you let your family out or your friends out because they may get stabbed or robbed? We need a decent police force. I mean, I've been based in police stations for many years. I was never a police officer, but I was based in police stations as a council manager. I've trained police officers. I've won awards reducing crime. And I thought, no, someone needs to stand up to this. No, someone needs to stand up to the mayor and say, you're failing us by failing the police. And what many people don't realise, and the same with Sadiq Khan as well, the mayor is also the police crime commissioner. They're fully responsible for the police. They don't have an influence. They are fully responsible for the police. They can sack chief constables. They are the top tier of policing, is the police crime commissioner. So that's why I stood last time. That's why I'm standing again, because I desperately want to fix our police in Greater Manchester. So if you get in, what's your number one priority on day one?
Day one, I'm just gonna literally walk into the office and slap everyone into shape, you know, flex my bicep. Everyone's got to start behaving themselves. No, but in all honesty, day one, wow, where to start?
Forget day one. Well, what's your number one priority? If you only can work on one thing, what's that one thing you're working on and why?
I'd say the very sort of sole focus of my campaign has got to be, it's got to be the health aspect. In very, very close second place is the policing and crime aspect as well. But yeah, I'm focusing my campaign on the health aspect. You know, as I've always said, you know, we can't have a functioning healthy society if people aren't actually healthy themselves. You know, without your sort of health, everything else fails. So that
As Mayor Andreas, what does that look like? If you're mayor, what are you going to do?
yeah. So I'd like to empower Londoners to take control of their health, because it's something's a lot. Again, you know, I don't know. This is something that's been happening for a very long time, but you know, with the sort of like convenience era we live in, with the sort of the advances in technology. It's like health has just become a distant, I wouldn't even say second or third priority. People just don't prioritize their health anymore. And it always needs to be the very sort of first priority in everyone's life, to take care of themselves. Because if you don't take care of yourself, your health, you can't do anything else. Nothing else sort of works. So yeah, my priority is the health aspect of the mayor's office, the policy area.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, especially something like obesity. I think something like 40% of all primary school kids are obese. The amount of money the NHS is spending trying to reduce obesity, but at the same time, we're being told by mainstream press, we've got so many poor people in the country who are starving to death. Who's starving in the UK? I'm not saying everyone's a millionaire in the UK, but honestly, no one is starving in the UK, because the biggest problem is obesity.
Yeah, I agree. I done. I think it was like around last year, or the year before. I can't remember when the whole sort of cost of living crisis came around. I done a small sort of like mini campaign in my gym. I've basically offering any child, no questions asked. They can come into my gym at any point, and we sell healthy meal preps, and they can just take a meal, no questions asked. You can eat it there. You can take it away, whatever you want, any time of day. If you're struggling at home, you don't need to give a reason. Just come and take a meal, and it's yours. I started that campaign. We hardly got anyone sort of come in, and it did tell me, people aren't starving here in the UK. If they were starving, I think we'd be getting kids piling in through the door all the time. Can I get a meal? Can I get?
If we were starving in the UK and malnutrition was a real thing, it would be the front page of every newspaper. We'd be going into hospitals, interviewing parents and kids who were starving, who had, rickets and who couldn't get enough vitamins. That doesn't happen because that's not the case. What we do have is we have generations of people, usually from the same families, who are making poor choices and are continually making poor choices. That's what we need to be tackling. We need to be empowering people and educating people to make better decisions and better choices, so they don't have to rely on food banks, so they don't have to rely on the state to feed them, so they don't have to rely on charity. But we don't do that bit of the work because that's hard work. It's easier to treat people as charity cases because it makes us feel good.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obesity here in London is definitely it's a massive issue. Over half of Londoners are overweight or obese. In London, we've got the highest rate of childhood obesity in all of England. I think all of the UK. So yeah, that's definitely more of an issue than people starving, so to speak. People are making poor choices, and like I said, we live in an era now of convenience, of all these technological advances. Nowadays you can just go on your phone and just go on Deliveroo and then click a couple of buttons. 10 minutes later, you've got a takeaway arriving at your door, full of ultra processed meat-based alternatives and seed oils and just crap that is so bad for your body, and people are just consuming it like it's food. It's not actually food, and this is what the problem is. People are making, like you said, making poor choices.
And those poor choices really come out of instant gratification. Nobody plans for the future anymore now. No one looks I want to be successful, so I want successful today. No. All these things take time. Being healthy takes time. You need to be planning for the future all the time. And if you love yourself and if you love your children, you shouldn't just want them to be happy today. You should want them to be happy 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. Love is a long-term plan. It's not instant gratification.
Exactly. People are just looking for that sort of magic potion. They pop a pill and then bam, all of a sudden I'm healthy again. And I think, shockingly, to a certain degree, people think that is possible. They think the NHS is going to save them with a pill and then all of a sudden they're healthy, but that's not the way health works. It really isn't. I've been building my gym for the last 10 years, and I can tell you now, health doesn't work like that. Health is a lifestyle. You have to want it, and it becomes easier as it goes along. This is what I'm trying to promote with my campaign. I'm not trying to nanny people into health. I just want to give people the tools they need to empower them to take care and take control of their own health. I've some of my policies, I believe, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I think they're amazing tools to help people along that way to take control of their own health.
Something we've both got in common is we live in cities with a crime problem. Now, to be fair, well, not to be fair, unfortunately, your crime problem is bigger than our crime problem. Let's talk about knife crime. Knife crime is an issue in Greater Manchester now, and we all know it's an issue in London. What do you think about the problems in your area with knife crime?
Knife crime has been allowed to spiral so far badly out of control for the past 7.5 years since the Khan's been in office. It's got to the point now where we've got parents burying children almost on a weekly basis. We've had over 1,000 deaths while under Middleman Khan's reign. It's not something we can even I can't talk about it in any type of humor and any type of like, because it's got to a point where it's so serious now. I'm a father, I think about these things. My eldest child is only, she's almost 7 years old, but like, what about when she's, I don't know, 10 or 12 and she's walking to school? Is she going to get stabbed? Like, it's got to the point now where, it can't be ignored anymore. He's ignored it for the past 7.5 years with his woke ideologies parading around on the world stage, trying to appease everyone and ignoring the actual problems, one of the most serious problems we face here in London.
No, absolutely. Now, what I'm going to do about knife crime in Greater Manchester is I'm going to ramp up stop and search, and I'm not going to apologise for it. Stop and search isn't the only tool to fight knife crime, but it's one of the best tools along, other strategies as well. And to get around the accusations of being racist, because unfortunately, I'm a male, I'm an old white stale male. So obviously I'm going to be accused of being racist because the stats tell us, you're more likely to be carrying a knife if you're a young black man, but you're also more likely to die from knife crime if you're a young black man. So I intend to save the lives of young black men. And if that makes me a racist, then so be it. But what I'm going to do to get around being called a racist is I'm going to hold mini referendums in every ward across Greater Manchester. So as you know, every year you have a council election every year. During that council election, I'm going to give everybody an extra ballot, and it's going to say, in your ward, do you want extra stop and search? And if the majority of people vote yes, you get it. And if you vote no, then you don't get it. You don't get punished. You don't get less policing. We're not going to punish you.
You get what you want.
You get what you want because the police are public servants. And which means I know for a fact the areas with the highest crime and areas with the highest knife crime will vote yes, because I know those parents love their children, and I know those parents don't want their children to die, so they'll vote for more stop and search. And when we do stop and search young black men, and the police are being accused of being racist, and the Black Lives Matter come on the streets to demonstrate, the answer is, excuse me, the people who live in this area voted in a majority for stop and search. And if they change their mind, which they're entitled to do, at the next referendum next year, they can vote no, and then it stops. I want to give the people the responsibility to save their own children's lives and to influence the police about what they do, because I'm tired of politicians telling the public how to live and what laws you're going to have. Let's go back to the people. The power should always remain with the people.
Always.
So knife crime is an issue. Crime in general. I mean, crime in general in London is at epidemic levels. Same in Greater Manchester. Our local newspaper, the Manchester Evening News, it's their top, almost the top 10 stories every day, and nearly always crime related. We had a guy last month stabbed to death in his car, and his car was worth £300. They stole his car for a £300 car. We had a guy 2 days ago pulled up at traffic lights where my family lives in Burnage, and he was stabbed to death in his car. We had a guy turn up at someone's house with an axe. Stranger, didn't even know him. He opened his door and got attacked with an axe. It's constant in Greater Manchester, but yet the people here keep voting for Andy Burnham, our Labour mayor. And when you ask him, what has Andy Burnham actually improved in 7 years he's been here? And the answer is, they can't name a thing he's improved. And is this the same issue in London?
We've got the exact same issue, except we have a mayor that keeps throwing dodgy stats at people and trying to ignore the issue or saying he's actually dealing with it. And then when we ask, do you have a plan? There is no plan. They have no way out of this. They have no measures they want to take. They have no ideas to stop this. It's just always dodging the question. It's always, well, actually, and they bring it back to a different area of policy, like it doesn't matter. Like these children, these people that are being stabbed and dying don't matter. We've got I'd say we have a slightly even worse problem. I watched a video the other day on Instagram and I shared it, and it was so embarrassing and cringeworthy for me to watch. I literally had my head in my hand while I was watching it. It was two Metropolitan Police officers somewhere in East London, and they weren't able to detain a 13-year-old boy. It was embarrassing to watch. It was literally embarrassing. There was a group of, I think there was three or four kids. They were 13 years old, school kids. One of the officers was trying to he looked like he was sort of trying to put the kid in a headlock or something like that. I couldn't really make out what he was doing. I have no idea why they were being apprehended. You know, that's besides the point. The whole point is there was two officers and they weren't able to detain a 13-year-old boy. And it is this, for me, this is one of the most major issues we're facing right now. The police down in here, London, they're not enforcing anything, and they're actually, when you look at a video like that, it just shows the police are scared of 13-year-old boys. It's I don't even know where to begin on how to discuss that. It's just laughable. How do you have a criminal with a machete or some sort of knife fear the police when those police can't even detain a 13-year-old boy? It's just an absolute joke. Like, so yeah, so some of my policies, they may seem on the sort of extreme side, but we're dealing with an extreme problem here in London. And you know, like, so for example, some of my policies are to ramp up the police training, and I believe that is the only way we're going to sort of deal with these problems. But our police,
it's not just the training. You need to look at the recruitment policy. We're
exactly,
recruiting far too many people who will never make good police officers, but they tick a box. They tick the gay box, they tick the black box, they tick the Muslim box, they tick the disabled box, they tick the female box. We're recruiting far too many people who will never make good police officers. Now, that's not to say gay, women, black, disabled people can't make good police officers. Some of them will make excellent police officers, but let's recruit them on merit, not because they tick a box.
the boxes are always going to be secondary priority. They have to be secondary priority. The main priority is recruiting police officers that can do their job. You know, like these woke ideologies, prioritizing them. And that is why we're in this problem right now in London, because these boxes are being ticked as a priority over actually officers that can do their job. You know, we've got just to become a Metropolitan Police officer, the only physical requirement they need to tick to enter the police is passing a bleep test and getting a score of 5.4. That to me, I think I could do that running, jogging slowly backwards. I just don't understand how we've got to this stage.
We've got to this stage. One of the reasons is because a majority of people have stopped voting, and if you stop voting, you have no say how your country's run or how your city's run, and that's why we're in the mess we're in. So recruitment needs to be looked at. But also a big problem, this is bigger problem in London, but every problem's bigger in London because your mayor's a lot worse than my mayor. Part of the problem is the mayor is so political, he will throw police officers under the bus. So police officers arresting that 13-year-old lad are scared stiff that they're going to be accused of being racist, or someone's going to video it and say, look, this is the new George Floyd video. Look what you're doing to a 13-year-old black boy. And they know if this goes viral and gets bad press attention, the mayor will throw me under the bus. I'll lose my job. So the police officers scared stiff because they know they don't have backup from the mayor. In Greater Manchester, if I'm mayor, every police officer, I'll have their back. Unless they break the rules, they'll break the law, we'll sack them. But if they're doing their job and they're heavy-handed doing their job, fighting a criminal, I don't care. I'll applaud that officer for getting in there and doing their job. But at the moment, we don't have politicians who will do that. So the police are scared to do their job.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there. That with this specific example, the police officer wasn't even able to arrest the 13-year-old boy. They just walked off in the end. But yeah, and he was trying to. So yeah, but I completely agree with you there. There's no backup from the mayor. The police are a lot of them are scared to do their job. And this is the thing. I've always had nothing but admiration and respect for police officers who do their job properly. You know, there are police officers out there who are capable of doing their job, who want to do their job and go out there and do a good service to their community. So I've got nothing but admiration and respect for those police officers. But sadly, we have a large portion of the Metropolitan Police today. They don't fall under that category for me. And honestly, that it will be one of the major things I will be changing within the Metropolitan Police. The training is going to change. The whole recruitment stages, the whole recruitment process is going to be completely changed. It will effectively be almost a complete change of the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, I had a serving Greater Manchester police officer speak to me a couple of weeks ago. He remained anonymous, so I don't even know who he is. He wanted to remain anonymous because he'd lose his job. And he said to me, Nick, if we sack straight away 15 to 20% of police officers in Greater Manchester, the crap ones, and didn't replace them, our productivity and outcomes would increase overnight. He says, because we're using good officers, walking behind bad officers, correcting all their mistakes. He said, if you could get rid of 15, 20% of all the crap officers, our police force would be better. And that's without replacing them. But he said, if you replace them with better officers, he goes, we could get back to being a fantastic police force within a year if someone had the backbone to do what needs to be done. So it is possible. And the good police officers are screaming for people like me and you to get in charge to fix the police. Now, let's change subjects. Let's talk about something both me and you find really important, which is connected to everything we've just spoken about. Let's talk about the family, because at the core of many of these issues is the family. Lack of fathers, lack of role models, lack of guidance at home. I want a revolution in this country of supporting the family. From the 60s onwards, we started destroying it. We started feeling sorry for single mums, so we gave them more money and told them, if you don't have a man in the house, we'll give you even more money. And then we wondered why we have an epidemic of single mums. Why do we allow fathers to walk away from their responsibility and step in and start paying for their children? All these problems were created in the 60s and 70s. And then we wonder why we have young boys getting involved in crime and knife crime and drugs. Why do we have girls now who think the only way for them to be special is to be a prostitute or on OnlyFans or to walk around half naked all the time? We're destroying our society because we've destroyed the family, and that's the bedrock of any society. And I want to start promoting that more and more and more in Greater Manchester. And I would guess you're probably the same.
I'm exactly the same, 100% with you on that, Nick. The family, you know, like I grew up in a single parent household, not not out of either of my parents' faults. My father fell sick, but I understand what it is to grow up in a single parent household, the difficulties and how it affects you later on in life. But you know, I've come out of that on top. I'd say I've come out of that fine. I don't have much sort of trauma I've never had no trauma in my.
But we must say to people, me and you are the exception.
Yeah, we are the minority.
Yeah, just because you're raised in a single parent household doesn't mean you're going to fail in life. It just means all we're doing is we're giving you more problems to overcome in life. That doesn't mean they can't be overcome by some of the people, but why would you want to bring a child in the world and then start disadvantaging them straight away and giving them extra barriers to climb over? You're just making your child's life harder at the very beginning.
Yeah, me as a father, I honestly I can't understand how some parents out there are absent from their children. I just don't. They're almost on a different planet to me. You know, I don't understand it. I couldn't be away from my children. You know, I've been on holidays, I think 5 or 6 day holidays without my children before, and I missed them so much. My daughter would call me, you know, on FaceTime, and I missed her so much. I ended up coming back a day or two early. You know, I don't understand how parents out there can be absent from their children. So it's a completely different wavelength to the way I sort of see things, the way I feel.
Yeah. Have you got any policies you're going to be looking at to improve families, to start strengthening families in London?
We haven't, but I've been taking a very close look at your policies. I think it was number 9 on your, is it number 9 on your manifesto? But yeah, family values is something we're looking at right now. And there's sort of very limited capabilities what the mayor's office holds with that, but there's definitely a lot of things where we can influence that and hopefully, improve family values.
What we all need across the UK is we need to bring back societal shame. That was one of the issues that started causing all these problems. There's no shame anymore now. So what used to keep us in check before was the shame we would feel from our neighbours because, oh, pregnant out, you're pregnant out of marriage. Oh, you're a single mum. Oh, had the police at your house again, did you, for little Jimmy? Oh, and those things would keep most people in check because you didn't want to be shunned by your community. We need to start bringing some of that back. And it's going to be hard for some people and some families, but you know what? Tough love is always hard because I want those dysfunctional families to improve. And they don't improve by pink and fluffy nonsense. They improve by taking personal responsibility and accepting some accountability for the state of their lives and state of their children's lives. And we do them no justice by allowing them to fail because we're too compassionate, we're too tolerant. I want them to have better lives. I want their children to have better lives. And we do that by showing them the right way and the right way to live. And that is making judgments and that is being intolerant. And I don't mind about that because I want the best for them.
100%. I just feel like there's been a loss of respect and community values. I've seen it throughout my whole life. We're at the stage now where, you don't even know your neighbour's name. Like you could, I don't know how it's probably maybe slightly different in Manchester, but here in London, literally you can live next door to someone and you don't even know their name for like 5-10 years. And then they've all...
Exactly the same. Yeah, all our big cities are like this now. And that's because we move around more than we've ever done before. So, you're born in a house, you'd end up dying in that house 50 years ago. Now you move cities all the time. And when we move cities, what do? That means we've partly abandoned our family because we don't see them anymore. And then when our parents get older and we don't live in the same city, well, we dump them on the state now. Let the state look after mum and dad now. And they might be abused in the care home, but to a certain extent, who cares? I'll just blame the state for the way my parents are being treated. We keep rejecting our responsibility all the time, and we want the state to pick up our responsibility. And what we need to understand about the state is the state does not care about me and you. We're just a number. They don't care about us. Your family members care about you and will hold you to account and they want the best for you because they love you. The state doesn't love you. You're just a problem to be solved. And the state is really poor at solving problems. And it might feel that the state is protecting you, but they're not. And the great way of looking at this is you can imagine a herd of sheep and they love that farmer because that farmer looks after them and protects them. And that farmer spends his money on feed. And when they get sick, the farmer spends his money on getting the vet to look after the sheep. And all those sheep feel protected and valued and special. But one day that farmer always turns up with a stun gun and a butchering knife. So be careful who you think is protecting you because you need that responsibility in your own hands because you never know the other person's agenda, even though you think they're protecting you and looking after you.
Yeah. It's like what you said, just taking responsibility for your actions and your family. Yeah, there is absolutely no sense of community value anymore. You just walk down the street and people don't even say hello anymore. Like people look at me, because every time I make eye contact with someone, I smile at them. Why not? It's impossible to even get a smile back these days. You go on the tube and I look around and, I just look around for 2 seconds and everyone's just sitting down looking at their phone, miserable, depressed, tired, defeated. Everyone's just become almost like a cog in the system.
Yeah, I mean, the most people I know now are not happy. And they have more money and more stuff than we've ever had. And, we're walking around with £1,000 iPhones. Everyone's got a new car or a newish car. Everyone goes on foreign holidays and everyone is so unhappy. And the reason why they're so unhappy is we've destroyed the base of their life, which was family.
family values, and health. You're just not taking care of yourself and your family. You know, that connection's been lost. Without those fundamental things, everything else you do in life that won't really make sense, and you're kind of like a lost soul walking around. Right?
We are. There's too many lost souls, too many people who are just a cog in someone else's machine, and they're just being turned every day. They don't, they don't know why they're doing that job. They don't know why they've got the life they've got, and they've been told that family's not important, having children's not important, getting married isn't important. But you know what? We keep telling people lies, and we keep telling people the wrong message. If you want to be happy, then you need to get married, have children, and build a family. That makes you happy. You still might struggle in life, you still might not have enough money, you still might have poor health. But if you've got no money and poor health, having the love of a child sat on your knee takes away most of your problems.
They're the true sort of like, that's where true happiness comes from, right? Like we're biologically created like that. You know, it's one of our sort of, it's in our biology. You know, to have a child is one of your accomplishments as a human being. You know, that gives you satisfaction in life. That's how you become happy, creating a family.
Yeah, and that's why all of us, well, I'm a bit strong, that's why many of us will risk our own lives to save a child, even a child that's not even ours, that we don't know. How many men jump in rivers to save a strange child? How many men run in burning buildings to save people they don't know? Because it's in us to protect the tribe, it's in us to look after family, and it's in us to protect children. Who do you think screams women and children first in emergencies? It's not women and children screaming that, men shout that, because it's part of our responsibility to protect the tribe and to protect children, and that gives us purpose in life. And at the moment, no one has purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about, that's another complete sort of fundamental value I think that's been lost as well. You just go on any sort of public transport nowadays here, like the tube or the bus, and you'll see like a fully grown man sitting down in the chair while an old lady's standing and barely able to stand. And it's just like, oh, look at that man and be like, are you serious? Are you all right? There's an old lady standing here, you're sitting down. Where's the respect? Were you not raised to get? I was raised, like my grandfather would literally slap me in the back of the head if I was sitting down on a chair and there was anyone older than me standing up. I wasn't allowed to do that. It's like just basic sort of fundamental values have been lost.
You're right, we've lost all that. And hopefully, if me and you get elected, we could be the first step in bringing back that type of society, a society that looks after each other, a society that has certain values and societal norms. And they may not be PC, they may not be pink and fluffy, but I'm sick of being PC now. I'm sick of being pink and fluffy.
Don't need it. We just need the basics.
Exactly, the basics. Treat each other, in a nice manner, and allow people to live the lives they want to live, as long as it's not damaging them, damaging other people, or damaging society. I don't care what you do in your house, in your bedroom, how you live your life. I don't mind to a certain extent if you damage yourself, because who am I to tell you what to do? But once your practices start damaging society and damaging other people, then we need to step in and say, no, we're not having this in our community, in our society.
Yeah, exactly. That this is another thing. The government have absolutely no right to tell people how they should or shouldn't live their lives, and that's where the way things are heading right now. We're going into sort of like a nanny state. The government's not there to nanny you. The government is there to uphold law and order and to serve the people.
Yep, we need less government in our lives. We don't need more. And hopefully, if we're elected, we can start doing that. Cheers for chatting today, and I wish you all the best. I really do wish you all the best in this election on the 2nd of May in London. And obviously, I want people to vote for you. Have a look at your website, have a look at what you stand for, check you out, because we need more independence. We need different voices. And hopefully, let's say you don't win, but let's say somebody knocks Khan off his perch. I want that person to steal some of your policies and go, do you know what? He was saying some really good stuff, and look how many votes he got. I'm going to steal his votes by taking his policies. For me, that's a win. I don't care who gets a slap on the back. I just want my city to improve.
Likewise, I'll be rooting for you blowing the horn for you on the 2nd of May as well, Nick. Yeah, but yeah, I've always said that as well. My definition of winning isn't actually making it into City Hall. My definition of winning is actually getting these issues out there and speaking about them, putting them in the public domain, making the politicians listen and making it a focus. You know, people's health, family values, all of these things, they need to be, give the people a voice, make these issues a priority. So for me, yeah, that's winning, even if I don't make it to City Hall.
No, great. Let's get back together again at the end of May, and we can talk about what happens and lessons learned and stuff like that. It'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Wicked. And I hope we'll both be having this Zoom from City Hall and your equipment. Yeah,
That'd be fantastic if that turns out to be true.
that'd be amazing.
Cheers, Andreas. I'll speak to you again.
Speak soon, Nick. Thank you. Take care.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.